You're watching 16 News Now Digital Plus's 16 Sports Extra, brought to you by Gates Automotive.
Welcome into the 16 Sports Extra podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Neill, joined with South Bend Tribune's Austin Hough and WNDU's Sabrina Hoover.
Thanks for introducing us, Jackson.
Of course. That's what a good host is.
Yeah,
that's what a good host is supposed to do.
Hostess with the mostest?
Exactly, something like that. Well, guys, I mean, it is November 18th, the day we are recording this, Monday, November 18th. And we're down to the Final Four in high school football.
Oh, exciting times.
And honestly, we had, some dramatic games this weekend, this past Friday, to say the least, and noteworthy results. Jackson, as the host, I'll let you kind of, steer the ship. Where do you want to go first?
I mean, you're talking about certain results, just some great games. I think if we're going to talk about, really big games in this area, we have to start with New Prairie and Mishawaka. The one game we had that was our 16 Sports Extra game of the week. I know, Austin, you were there. Sabrina, you were there.
We were both there.
Exactly. Both
you got out, chilling on the sideline, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little cold that night.
Yeah, just wait till this Friday. It's going to be worse.
I was going to say, it finally stopped. I'll be in New York. Covering Notre Dame. But it finally feels like some late season high school football here.
Yes.
But I guess I'll start with you, Austin, and then Sabrina, you can tack on too. Since you guys were there at this New Prairie Mishawaka game, just gotta take me through what you see in that game.
I wanted to let Sabrina go first.
Oh, there we go.
Can I delegate?
Because
I want you to get some points out, and then I'll tack on my analysis.
What was that noise? Did you hear that?
I thought I heard a creak. Was that the chairs?
I think
one of our chairs?
I thought I heard that noise.
Okay, I don't. Yeah, it sounded like okay. Anyway,
that was very weird.
That was very weird.
This is haunted in here.
It's spooky season, I guess.
I was gonna say, but yeah, New Prairie, Mishawaka. Sabrina, your thoughts, and then I'll share my thoughts.
Yeah. So this one was, excuse me, I'm still recovering. But no, this one was really interesting to me. Obviously, we've seen Mishawaka in the past continue to just be dominant on both sides of the ball. Offensively, it was the same kind of story for them. Obviously, Landon Snyder, here's that one rushing touchdown for him. Caden O'Neill had a rushing touchdown, I believe, and then just continued to add on. New Prairie obviously came back in that second half. They scored going into that. But, again, this Mishawaka team has just shown so much resilience throughout this season. And it's just interesting to me that every single week it feels like they just hit their stride and continue to find points offensively. And I think even talking to Keith Kinder after the game, I don't know if we'll show that later, but he just was like, these people or these players on this team, they want to play Mishawaka. Like, they want to be here. Like, they want to play Mishawaka football. They know how to play Mishawaka football. And this program is just so special because you can tell these players really, really love this program.
Yeah. It felt like a very weird 21-7 blowout victory. Like, Mishawaka controlled the entire game. They were up 21-0 midway through the second quarter, and it felt like, okay, like, this is going to be a rout. Yeah, everyone got a water bath this week. It was great. But it just felt like it was a blowout, and it was like, oh. And then Mishawaka didn't really score the rest of the game, but New Prairie also really didn't do too much either. I mean, they had some nice drives, but then they would take the proverbial one step forward, two steps back outside the long touchdown run by Reed Robinson. So it was, again, like, it felt like a blowout in a sense. But and honestly, if Mishawaka had scored on the last play before halftime, like, they got stuffed in the goal line, and then they tried to do a field goal, and they didn't get it out in time. If they score a touchdown there and it's 28-0, then it could have really gotten out of hand. But
and I love, like, obviously defensively they've been so solid, led by Jackson Snyder. But I love how he got hurt on one of the plays, went out, came back in, and got an interception. So I was like, all right, he's okay.
And kudos to New Prairie for not giving up. Like, they could easily have folded a 21-0, and they stayed in it, and they battled, and they got a 21-7, but they just didn't have a lot of answers for that Mishawaka defense, and they've been playing really well on that side of the ball. So kudos to Keith Kinder and his coaching staff. Regional redemption for last year. They lost at the buzzer in a 5A regional game to Fort Wayne Snyder, like literally a walk-off field goal. So, as I wrote in my story, 371 days later, they get to have a different mood walking off of Steel Stadium's new turf, And
I also think it says a lot about Mishawaka considering how much November success that New Prairie has had in recent years. So for Mishawaka to come out here and just be dominant.
These have been the two best programs in our area the last 15 years, give or take. You don't maybe think of that because, like, when you think of this area, you think of Penn and how historic they've been. But as far as, like, since 2009, New Prairie has been to the state finals twice. Mishawaka went once. They both have multiple sectionals, regionals, semi-state titles. So this was literally the two best programs, at least in the last 15 years, going at it, and they played, a pretty solid game, all things considered, I'd say.
And then if you want to hear from head coach Keith Kinder
great
after
guy.
this,
Great
after
comments
this game,
always.
Yeah, well,
he's a very entertaining guy. Sorry.
Let's hear from him.
I'm just really proud of our program. This is a program win. We got great kids. We got great kids here. We got kids that want to play football at Mishawaka. And that's what's special about this program. Mishawaka football is a special thing. They're really good. And I knew it wasn't over. I was really upset with myself at the end of the first half because we left points on the board or off the board. But, I knew it wasn't going to be easy in the second half, and they proved that.
Yeah, this is definitely great, being able to break through that wall, the regional losses the last 2 years, get to the next level. We don't think we're done yet. We want to come back for another week and hopefully play in the Dome.
There's Jackson at the end.
There's Keith talking about leaving those points, too, at the first half. He might have basically... I think I don't know if he talked to you or me first, but I think he just kind of used the same playbook in his answers because we did our interviews separately, and then that program win answer was basically what he told me too. So
me and Bennett were trying to get him earlier on, and then he was like, "You guys want to be in the picture?" And we were like,
"Excuse me,
I'll let y'all take that one."
Yeah, it's kind of a mad scramble at the end of these games. So
I think it's kind of funny too. Is this the first interview we've done with Keith Kinder after a game without one of his kids?
Yeah, he always has his kids running around.
Actually,
it's
funny,
very cool.
his son was next to him.
Oh,
his son was letting him have the spotlight.
Because when I heard we had an interview with Keith Kinder, I'm like, oh, well, I got to see the kids. Like, I'm always excited to see what they have to say as well.
Yeah.
But no, just an incredible win for them. And you kind of mentioned with the New Prairie success. Going into that game, Mishawaka's had this this great season, but New Prairie team, a senior class with 4 sectional titles. That doesn't really happen that often, if ever, at a lot of programs.
I believe they have the longest active sectional winning streak of any team in the area right now.
It makes sense.
Crazy.
I mean, they just year after year after year recently. So to get that win, it's weird to say 21-7 kind of blowout win, but
they controlled it. Like Mishawaka controlled it. It was never really in doubt that it was going to be. Mishawaka wasn't going to win, especially at 20. Once it got to 21-0, there was never a doubt, really, I think, in anyone's mind.
And now they get to be back at home.
Exactly.
To host
So
East Noble. I know we'll get to that.
Do we want to talk about that now or later?
You know what? Let's just talk about that now.
Okay.
Let's just jump right into
Sorry,
it.
guys, I went for the tease right there.
Went for the tease. You know what? We're just gonna go by team, I guess. Take a look at the bracket right now. So Mishawaka into semi-state, back at home. That's pretty big. Hosting a really good East Noble team. I mean, I think that's gonna be the thing we're going to have to say basically.
Yeah.
Every single one of these games going forward is the team. There's no bad teams left at this point in the year. There doesn't matter what the draw was earlier. None of that stuff. If you're one of the Final Four, you are a really, really good football team. There's no easy outs.
At a minimum, you're on a 4-game winning streak.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to have won at least 4, at least in Indiana to get here. Some teams 3, obviously, but. Yeah, just taking a quick peek at East Noble, they're 12-1. Their only loss was to 6A Fort Wayne Snyder, who we talked a little bit about when they played Elkhart. That was a good team. They were the defending 5A state champs, so quality loss. That's not for East Noble. They navigated a tough sectional just like Mishawaka did. They had to beat Columbia City. They had to beat Leo a couple times to win. Those were top 10 teams all year, we thought, in 4A. So, and then they kind of really took care of business against Huntington North, 52-17. It kind of starts with Dylan Krell for them, senior running back. He's got 1,400, almost 1,500 yards, 18 touchdowns, and then he also leads the team with 98 tackles, 20 for loss. So he's been a beast on both sides of the ball for them. I think he has 5 sacks. Yes, correction, 5 sacks. One stat that really jumps off the page for East Noble defensively, 29 interceptions as a team.
Jeez.
Wow.
Now, Mishawaka doesn't throw the ball off.
I was going to say that's a stat where I'm looking at that and going, well, I mean, maybe that's not.
That actually could be okay for Mishawaka.
But that's still impressive.
I mean, they have one guy at 8, one guy at 7, 2 guys at 4. Like, this is crazy.
It's like a secondary of Xavier Watts.
Yeah, pretty much. And obviously, Mishawaka won't throw the ball that much, but, I mean, in their 5 pass attempts they throw a game, maybe. Like, could one of them be intercepted? We'll see, I guess.
Well, and then everyone's circling that Lucas Oil Stadium. I mean, that would be, I know that's, in the future, but if that could be a possibility, if Mishawaka gets this win, how cool would that be for that program?
Yeah, it'd be their first trip back since 2012. They went in 1974 as well.
Wow.
So they've been twice. They're 0-2, unfortunately, in the state finals. They lost to Terry McLaurin-led Indy Cathedral in 2012. So
that's pretty good.
Got a future NFL wide receiver playing.
Pretty good at future NFL wide receiver.
Quality loss. loss, right?
Yeah, quality loss
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that was okay. Yeah, and then so it's gonna, it feels like it's gonna come down to Mishawaka and if they can control the clock and keep East Noble's offense off the field as much as possible.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier said than done with East Noble. They've been really good. They've kind of been the class of the Northern 4A, I feel like, for at least the second half of the year once they started hitting that stride. And Mishawaka, of course, is no slouch either. I mean, 11-2 versus 12-1. These are two really good teams. Mishawaka's only losses are to Warsaw, who's in semi-state, and Concord, who went undefeated in the regular season. So, this should be a tremendous game. Steel Stadium, 7:30 p.m. Home game for Mishawaka is huge, right?
Yeah.
It's like an hour and 20-minute drive from Kendallville. So that should help a lot for Mishawaka, and they'll have a huge crowd, obviously, on hand.
And before we go from a different subject, I do have to say it was really impressive to see Mishawaka start out fast offensively. So I feel like if they can continue that train going on against East Noble, I think that it should be really interesting.
Yeah, it took New Prairie about a quarter and a half to get used to triple option, and if you're not used to it, the speed and the physicality of it, that could help Mishawaka. I think they want to take the ball first. Usually, when if you win the coin toss, you want to maybe defer.
Right.
It wouldn't hurt Mishawaka to take the ball first in this game to try to maybe set the tone on offense with that flex bone, triple option, whatever you want to call it, and go from there.
Like a 9 minute drive, opening drive, just go
23 plays, 71 yards,
12 minutes right there. And I think it can't be understated too. You kind of mentioned the crowd aspect, but just going throughout the postseason at home.
Yeah.
That is such a big thing. I remember last year, covering Northwoods Run and having to go down to Leo, different places like that. It's like just being able to consistently go, okay, Friday night, we're back at home.
Don't have to get on a bus.
Don't have to get on a bus. Don't have to do anything different. It's just another, can almost treat it like another home game.
Yes.
I think that's really big for a program.
Yeah, and it gives the kids a little bit of just security, a little bit, to have their home crowd there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's so so helpful right there. So Mishawaka definitely on a great run.
Yep.
Great matchup this week.
Great
Love that it's
matchup.
home here in Mishawaka. That's going to make it pretty easy for us to get over there and cover that.
Yes.
But
All
now,
right,
how want
next
to go?
one.
Want to go up to 5A? Look
Yeah,
at
let's
Warsaw,
do it.
little
The
Warsaw.
Tigers.
Warsaw,
All right.
basically the team the Giant Killers. I mean, that's basically what you have to call them now.
Yeah.
After they beat Concord, undefeated
Yes.
Concord team, and then now they take down an undefeated Lafayette Jefferson team.
Crazy.
Warsaw. A team, I don't even know what to say at this point. It's just two of the most impressive wins that I've seen all season long.
Yeah, I mean, to beat back-to-back undefeated teams is impressive, right?
Mhm.
And credit to Bart Curtis, man. The guy just wins, and they found a way to do it again. It was 21-21, and they got a safety at that point. 21-21, and they got a safety to go up 23-21, and that pretty much changed the whole game. They won 41-27, so just tremendous effort to them, and triple option is back, baby.
It really is.
Bart ball,
yeah.
Kinder ball, like all of it,
That's
man. We're
crazy,
back. It's
yeah.
back, and we'll talk about Niles here in a little bit
We
too.
can talk about
so-
now. We also, armies,
Army week for Notre
It's almost,
Dame.
Right,
almost like it's like just leading up to this weekend.
It's crescendoing, yeah.
Yeah. Big year for the triple this year.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot of, again, Warsaw's never won a regional title before. This is their first in program history. This is uncharted territory for them. They get a great Maryville team in the semi-state. Maryville 0-9 in semi-state. They've been 9 times to the semifinals and have not gotten there.
We're gonna show the bracket there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's just painful. It's just painful, like to be so close. So they'll definitely have motivation. Both teams will have motivation, obviously, to get there, and it's a Final Four game.
And
so.
one thing I will say though, Maryville not undefeated. They do.
Can they get up for that?
Yeah, they are 11-1. So if you're Warsaw, you're thinking, this is another undefeated.
This is an
team.
easy game compared to the last 2 weeks.
literally.
Yeah.
Let's not start our starters.
Yeah.
We'll play our backup.
I will say though that Maryville's one loss this season came against Crown Point, which
It's also in a 6A semi-state game.
I saw Crown Point against Penn. Crown
good.
Point is the best football team I've seen this year. They are that is
Yeah, Crown Point beat Maryville 46-13.
yeah that is like a 6A state championship caliber team
Yeah,
this year. So I don't losing to them is putting up 13 points against them is actually impressive.
Crown Point gets to travel to Indy this week before actually potentially going to Indy for real next week.
Yeah,
They're going to Westfield this
funny.
week.
Watching
Yeah.
Crown Point, that's a great team. But I mean, you look at Maryville right now, just a team that's just super hot. They beat double-digit wins, just blowing out teams.
They beat Valparaiso 48-14. They really took it to them.
Beating Hammond Norton easily. Hammond Central just kind of like running through their teams. And they had already beat Valparaiso huge earlier in the year. They're close games coming against Michigan City, 14-12 game back in September 20.
Everyone played Michigan City. Michigan City played everyone.
Yeah, Michigan City was just one of those teams. Just everything was close.
The best 3-7 team of all time, I think. Like,
most well, what were we saying with the Florida State with Notre Dame? Most talented one-win team. So Michigan City. Something like that.
Yeah. So it should be a heck of a game. Sorry.
No, you're fine. But I was gonna say like a team like Warsaw, and I think we see this a lot with other teams that kind of like hit their stride now in the postseason, but teams like this are so dangerous because it's like, yes, in the regular season they have, really close, maybe close losses like they did to Concord, but then they like get that revenge win in the postseason. And then when they hit their stride and they find their confidence, it's like, who can beat them? You know what I mean? So it's going to be a good one.
And I just keep going back to September 20. I know we talked about this last week, but September 27th, I think is probably when it just looks like when this season changed for Warsaw. That overtime loss to Plymouth. It was such an emotional game for Plymouth getting that win. Since then, Warsaw hasn't lost. And they played teams like Mishawaka. They played teams like Concord, Lafayette, Jefferson, Northwood. They've played really good football teams, and they just haven't lost since.
I think if you that the truth serum, right? If you inject that into Bart Curtis, he would tell you that was probably the turning point of the year.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, Maryville is a very young team. At least just looking at their offensive numbers, the quarterback's junior. The top 3 rushers are sophomore, junior, freshman. Wide receivers are pretty young, junior, and 2 seniors out there. But Maryville's a younger team. Whatever that's worth. I mean, so obviously at this point of the year, everyone's got experience. The coaches always love saying, like, at this point, like, the juniors are basically seniors, sophomores are, juniors, right? So they've had plenty of experience. And Maryville played a good, they played a tougher schedule. So Warsaw played a great schedule too. So, it should be a tremendous game. And again, at home, Warsaw at home.
I want to mention that too. Is that Warsaw again getting these, this game at home after beating Lafayette Jefferson at home last week. Our teams are getting, I don't know, lucky or just whatever the word you use.
The draw has worked out nicely.
The draw has worked out nicely for our teams here in Michiana to get these home games because I think we don't usually talk about like travel in high school that much, but I think once you start talking about, okay, now it's semi-state and it's an hour and a half.
It's probably an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Yeah, it's like, that's a much longer bus ride. It just kind of makes it a lot hard. You have to leave earlier in the day. You get tight on the bus, things like that. Like
fan support, too.
Fan support. It's things like that don't really kind of come into play that much in the regular season when you're playing conference games where no one's that far away from each other. But now at this point in the year, I think it does.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
So so that's going to be a big one there. 7:30 kickoff.
Right, because of the Central versus Eastern.
Exactly. We actually have it right on our bracket.
I think it's
there.
7:30 for every game in Indiana this week.
Oh, it is.
If we're talking about North Judson, we can talk about North Judson.
Yeah, that's where I was going to.
Going to North Judson.
That's where I was going to go to next. If you want to just keep on moving.
70-6.
So so North Judson. Let's take
it was a really close one, Austin.
We're just taking a look at the. I'm just pulling. We don't have the highlights from that 70-6 game, but I could imagine if you just could imagine.
So this is crazy, by the way. This is the second straight week that North Judson will play a team that was under 500 in the regular season.
How does it? I don't get how that happens.
So obviously like South Adams and Taylor played like harder schedule. Like they played bigger schools, in the regular season. Like South Adams, plays a lot. I'm just looking at South Adams' schedule right now. Like their losses were to a 2A team, 2A, a 3A, a 2A Adams Central, right? Like they lost to 3A Woodland by 7. Like quality losses, like good teams, bigger than them. And South Adams has been one of those programs that's kind of been knocking on the door a lot. They ran into Adams Central and their rival in 1A a lot in the postseason. Adams Central went up to 2A this year. Adams Central's in the 2A semi-state again. It might be Adams Central versus Indy Lutheran for the 4th straight year in a state championship game if they both win on Friday. They played 1A 3 years in a row.
Jeez.
Lutheran won all 3.
Yeah.
So we could get part 4 potentially in the 2A game next week.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. But anyway, back to North Judson. I mean, so yes, there's you play a harder schedule, and then if you get into an easier sectional, you got a chance to maybe capitalize on that. Madison Grant was South Adams' biggest game, the sectional final. They won 43-36, and then they beat a good North Miami team last week, 40-21 at home. But again, I don't think anything is stopping this North Judson team. I mean, they should be in Indianapolis next Saturday for the 1A state championship game, barring some crazy. I mean, they're at home. You know, it's actually an 8 p.m. Eastern start, 7 p.m. Central. So I lied about that. Apologies, but they're just insane.
I mean, like I just have their schedule pulled up because at this point you just can't even say anything really because their closest game this year came back in week one, August 23rd against Knox, a 3A school, which they beat by 21 points.
Yeah, and Knox was 1 point away from going to semi-state.
That is like that's not just a 3A team. That is a very Knox lost this past week to Garrett 41-40.
And it's a rivalry game.
Exactly. Yeah. But Knox is a team that honestly, we were looking back at this past week. That was one result I was really surprised by, seeing them lose by 1 point. They were leading. That's a team that should probably be in the 3A semi-state. And North Judson beat them by 3 touchdowns. That's their closest game.
Yeah.
I mean, I think on Friday night I said this stat, but last week was their 3rd time this season putting up 70
That's insane.
points.
Yeah.
What do you like?
North Judson could win 2A. They could probably win 3A. I mean,
when you said their first loss, I was gonna be like, or their first close thing, I was gonna be like, oh, did they play Michigan City?
Yeah, they probably did. Michigan City it would inevitably be a 6-point game.
Yeah, it'd just be 6 points out of it.
Whoever you think's gonna win that, it'd just be 6 points.
6 points.
They are borderline unstoppable right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I think the only question is, and I know, Austin, we've talked about this off the podcast a little bit, and maybe even on the podcast, I think the only question is really, where does this team stack up with those Kaiser-led Pioneer teams?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what this whole thing, it's going to be pretty hard to deny it. Again, those Kaiser teams, you look at the stats from...
Yeah,
you had the Division I linebacker playing quarterback and running back and linebacker.
The Notre Dame's most appearances in Notre Dame history playing 1A football.
Right.
I
think running against kids like my size. You know what I mean?
I think at the end of the day, those Kaiser teams always, but that's the type of conversations you have to have with North Judson. It's not who's going to beat them this year. It's if Jack Kaiser-led Pioneer could beat them. That's the conversations we have to have because 70-6 in regionals. Come on, man.
If they get there, it'll likely be against Providence. It feels like, and that would be 2 undefeated teams. So it'd be kind of a fun game. But I don't know, man. They're just a juggernaut right now.
They really are.
Just feels like they're going to not be denied, especially after so many years being close to this. They would lose to Adams Central or whatever in the semi-state, and it would be like, dang, they were so close. But they've just been overly dominant this year.
A motivated, talented, a team that's more talented and a team that is more motivated.
Yes.
You don't beat those combinations.
Yeah, and they got so many seniors, right? We talked about that. This is a senior group,
experience.
They do not want to be denied.
If you are creating a checklist of what you want in a football team, motivation, talent, experience,
check.
What are they missing? It feels like right now. So I feel like we're going to be talking about North Judson for the rest of this month.
Yeah, no doubt.
And we have been for the entire
This is their 4th straight year. Sorry, 4th straight year in semi-state. They lost to Adams Central 3 years in a row in semi-state.
That's crazy.
And now that Adams Central isn't there, so
now their path is open.
Now they get to play South Adams. So Adams Central always beat South Adams in the regional, and then they would always beat North Judson in semi-state the last 3 years.
So now they're not there. South Adams is in. Now seeing the chain effect here. Yep.
There we go.
All right.
Well, we got to go to the fun one.
Yeah. So this is the game that let's go up. That's our Indiana teams.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go north of the border.
North of the border to. This might have been the best high school football game I've seen.
Jackson, I'll let you take the lead on the analysis of this one.
So this one.
For those who missed it, Niles 37, Portland 34.
And I mean, this one was crazy. Right now we're showing the highlights.
Student section was packed.
It was packed on Niles side. There was standing room only. Portland side, same thing. You could see they have a great student section, just back and forth. Basically, Niles goes up by a couple touchdowns. Portland starts coming back. The last couple minutes of this half, just touchdowns, turnovers, just kind of anything you could expect was going on. Niles felt like they were in control for the most of the first half, but they scored this touchdown right here to make it 21-7. It's like, okay, they're in control. Following kickoff, Portland takes it all the way back. That makes it a 7-point game. Before you know it, Portland's tying this game up. It just was one of those halves where you're kind of looking around. There's turnovers happening. There's big plays. Portland, they usually run the football, but now you're seeing they're airing it out.
Oh, that's a good shot right there.
Exactly. They tie the football.
Great shot.
They tie the football game up. It was just one of those games where you really didn't know what happened. It felt like each team had a chance at different times. I mean, a 4th and goal here for Portland. They just barely get it in. If you're a Niles fan, you're watching that replay going, I don't know about that.
Controversial.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all. Doesn't matter now. You won the game, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, this towards the end of the game, Niles just making game-winning plays.
That's so good.
It was 28. They scored a touchdown. They were going to make it 28-28 basically, and they go for 2 instead to go up 29-28. Then Portland comes back. They score a touchdown. So now they're basically ahead. They're ahead 34-29. I'm just losing track.
Yeah.
And then
No,
eventually,
there was so much that happened.
it gets to be 4th and 18 or something like that in the last drive, and Niles converts it. And then they score the touchdown. It was back and forth. Niles, it just feels like the team of destiny.
Yeah.
It's one of those
and
wins.
I love seeing Scott Shaw's real quick,
Go ahead.
his celebration at the end with all the players, because I think it's at the very end, but he's just so happy, and you can tell he loves this team so much. And I mean, I even see it in practice, the way he just talks to them. He has so much passion and so much love for all of them. It's more than just a football team for him. I feel like those are his other sons. I know he has a son, but those are his other sons. So it's really, really, it's so cool to see these teams that we cover that get big wins like this in the postseason, because it just makes our job fun, because it's we've been with them throughout the regular season. We've seen their ups and downs.
You feed off that energy when you're around those are people experiencing one of the happiest moments of their lives. It's really hard not to be happy.
Want to see that happiest moment?
Let's see it.
Yeah,
Let's go.
see.
Let's go to Scott Shaw after.
Feels great, especially the way it all came about. I mean, first you're running away with it, then they're running away with it, and we came back and give our kids credit, man. We didn't quit either day, and this was a heck of a football game, man. I don't think they get much better than this. Oh, it means everything. I mean, it means that we're taking steps in the right direction. We're 1 of 4 left in the state. We got a shot to play for some big notoriety, and I'm just so happy for these guys that they were able to muster it among themselves and not quit and take it to the house. So.
Yeah, just the best. Just the best.
So you mentioned, Jackson, the word destiny. This is a big destiny weekend. I don't know if you looked at so Niles is playing Grand Rapids South Christian in the Final Four, the semifinal. They call it just semifinal.
Yep.
The game is Saturday, 1 p.m. at Three Rivers. Scott Shaw is a Hall of Fame coach, mostly because of what he did at Three Rivers High School, including a state championship in 2003 there.
Wow.
So he gets to go back to Three Rivers and they'll be on the home sideline because they're the home team. They have the more playoff points for a chance to go to state. And I didn't know this until the Three Rivers Twitter account mentioned this to me. Scott Shaw's first playoff game at Three Rivers came against Grand Rapids South Christian.
No way.
So 38 years ago, it was Three Rivers against. Now, Grand Rapids South Christian won that game.
Ooh.
So we have 38 years almost in the making of a potential retribution, redemption. But I mean, and look, you kind of alluded to this. Sabrina, but Scott has a son, Kyle, who's the offensive coordinator at Mishawaka. Great story. I'm sure we're both doing something on that this week. Cheap plugs for our future content. But Kyle will get to be there on Saturday now and watch his dad coach, and obviously Scott will be at the game on Friday night for Mishawaka. So the former Three Rivers quarterback, Kyle Shaw, will be there to watch his dad, the former Three Rivers coach, at Three Rivers, to potentially get Niles to its first ever state championship game. I don't know if that's destiny. If that ain't destiny, I don't know what is. I hope to God that Grand Rapids doesn't ruin this for us. I'm kidding.
That's another motivator too, because for the players, they want to win this game for Scott
and
Shaw.
Although it's not a home game officially for Niles, this is going to be as close to a home game as you can get. There's going to be people from Three Rivers that are going to come out and support Scott Shaw. I mean, Three Rivers hadn't ever done anything in football. He took them and then he built them into a powerhouse. They won the state championship in 2003. and he was an incredible coach. And like I said, he's a Hall of Fame coach. He was, he was voted in the Michigan Coaches Hall of Fame in 2012. Like, that's how long he's been coaching. He's been going for, 12 years since. But
12 years later, after getting into the Hall of Fame, he's trying to get back another state title.
Yeah. It's just I don't know, man. It's cool. Like,
Feels
it's
like
these
destiny.
These are I call them free stories. Like, these are the free storylines sometimes that you get like lucky to kind of have in our job. But this is a perfect storm of everything coming together for Scott Shaw and Niles, and man, if you're not gonna be playing at Viking Stadium, you might as well be playing at Three Rivers to have this. It's just really cool, man. We're supposed to be unbiased journalists, but it's hard not to pull for these guys on Saturday afternoon, given all of that's going into it, and to kind of go back to like the game. Sam Rucker, by the way, 177 total yards of offense, 4 touchdowns, won a game, 11 tackles on defense, too. The kid is everywhere. He is doing it. He does everything. A 4-year starter for them. He's been incredible. But, I talked to Scott Shaw yesterday or Sunday at Beef O'Brady's, of all places, actually. And so, no free advertisements, but, he mentioned, they felt way more prepared this year than last year. Like, last year, it was literally a whole new world for them. They had never been to regional before. They lost to Portland 21-14 on their home field. This year, they come in, they felt a lot more prepared, and they executed, and it showed. They did not lose their poise down late, and they laid a touchdown drive to win the game. And 2 seniors there, Talon Bennett to Sam Rucker to win the game. So tremendous effort on their part, and we'll see how they do this week, right? Semi-state or semifinals. Sorry, it's their first time going to the semifinal, but Grand Rapids, I believe, is 8-2 in these state semifinal games, so they have plenty of experience. They are one of those types of programs that, it uses their private school abilities to be good in football. Let's just say that. And so it's a tough battle. It's the little public school underdog against big old Christian school from Grand Rapids. So it should be a lot of fun.
But I mean, just looking, you mentioned like making the bright plays. The crowd, the game turned against Niles. They took the 14-0 lead. It got to be tied going into halftime. The momentum was all on Portland's side. They get the second half kickoff. They go down and score, and then they get the ball again. And they're driving. They're right around midfield, and it's like, okay, Portland looks like second half they're about to take a 2-score lead. This is another team that can run the football really, really well, and you're thinking to yourself, this is where it's going. Niles had this game. Where's it going? All of a sudden, I was able to kind of get pressure on the quarterback, force a fumble. They recover. They go down and they score, and they don't just tie it up. They take the lead. And that was a type of several minutes in the third quarter right there that if Niles ends up winning it all and ends up making this incredible run, that's the part that I'm going to be circling right now of, okay, that's championship DNA. Yeah. That's the type of thing where, because the opposing crowd, they filled their stands. They had standing room only too.
Which is crazy. That's a 2-hour drive from
Exactly.
Portland.
They showed up. Credit to Portland. They had a full student section. When something good happened for them, it sounded like, not as loud as Niles' sideline did, but it sounded almost as loud. They really brought that energy, and you could just feel the stadium all shift. And a lot of times, and I don't care what level of football, that's really hard to come back from. And Niles did that in the best way possible.
Well, and then I also want to ask you, because Niles was the best atmosphere I've ever been to for a football game. Was it like that? Like the music, the sound effects.
They're doing sound. They do love. They're a big fan of Anchorman.
Who is it?
Yeah, they're a big fan of Anchorman, but specifically Steve Carell's character in that says loud noises at one point.
Yes.
And I heard that maybe 25, 30 times. I was there for almost the entire game.
It was so fun. It felt like a college game on the sense of like the crowd entertainment, to make everyone in it. It was great.
And I mean, there's big stands at Niles. I think you saw in that video. There's big stands, and they were packed.
Yeah.
It literally was people just standing along the fences, maybe even too deep.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like an environment probably the best. It's the best one I've seen this year.
I love it.
I wonder what the rules are for they are technically the home team, but it's a neutral site. Do they get to
loud noises?
Do they get to have the same
I love that
freedom? Are they running the scoreboard?
Yeah, they need to bring a speaker and have
Penn does that. I know Penn's student section has a speaker.
Yeah, maybe the Three Rivers PA person will just be like, you know what, I'm for Scott Shaw. Let's just go crazy.
There's if they're the home team, they've got to bring that down whatever music or whatever that loud noises, and they got to bring that and play that. They definitely got the crowd amped up at times, but I think a lot of times in high school we don't usually, we talk about the crowd sometimes playing a factor. That played a factor in that game for sure.
Yeah, you could even in the post game interview with Scott, you could hear how loud they still were.
The students rushed the field.
Yeah.
It was, it was an incredible.
Yeah.
We're like trying to do the interview. We're getting bumped in by students. Everyone's holding the trophy. You could tell that this run means a lot to this school and this community.
They've literally never experienced this ever. They have no idea how to react, act. Like it's like
this
and if they win this weekend,
it's like Indiana.
If they leave this,
the fans don't know how to do.
And if they win this weekend, last one to leave Niles turned the lights off for Ford Field. You know what I mean? So that'd be fascinating. They would play the Friday after Thanksgiving, the second game that day, 12:30 at Ford Field. So obviously they got to get through this week first.
Right.
A very good opponent, Western Michigan basketball commit Carter Viss is the quarterback for Grand Rapids South Christian. So they're a D1 athlete there. They have other 3 or 4 very hard names to pronounce that I couldn't really do. I was looking up some Grand Rapids info today. They've got a lot of just hard names to pronounce.
Hey, and as a newspaper guy, you don't even mess with
as long as I can copy and paste.
As long as you can spell them, that's what you care about. Us TV people have to know how to pronounce them.
Carter Viss, I think is easy. I think that's the one that we can get the easiest one on that. But yeah, he's a Division I basketball player, recruit. So obviously you're going to play a great athlete, a quarterback. This can be the best probably quarterback they've seen all year. So that'll be an interesting kind of chess match for Niles. And again, you run that flex bone, triple option, man. You keep the ball away from those guys, you got a good chance.
And that's the thing is, at the end of the day, you just don't. And the way Scott Shaw's calling these games too, in terms of just being his aggressiveness right now, that going for 2 to go up ahead 29-28 instead of just making it 28-28. It's calls like that that's tough. Yeah. That's tough to beat.
And South Christian, they won their first 4 games. Then they lost their next 4 games. Oh. Now they've won their last 4 games. I don't know.
It's only 4-game streaks for them.
They had to win week 9 to get into the playoffs, so they're kind of probably playing with some house money in their mind. But yeah, they've gone into 4s so far this year. I don't want to I'm just pointing it out there that they, all they do is 4.
But still just crazy. Now just kind of wrapping this up. Looking at it, who thought that this week we'd have 4 local teams still alive, still in it.
That could easily move to the next level.
I'm looking at this, looking at all of our, I think North Judson, definitely
the safe pick.
Definitely is the safest, but even Mishawaka, Warsaw, Niles, they all have good shots to win their football games and keep on moving and go to the state championship games.
Yeah, they're all toss-ups for sure. I think, if... it's going to be it feels like, if you go by the computer rankings at the end of the year, right? Eastover was slightly ahead of Mishawaka and Maryville was a little slightly ahead of Warsaw. So if you go by those metrics, right, those teams are the favorites, air quote, but you can't discount, what Mishawaka is doing, what Warsaw is doing. And Neill is obviously, they were the better team in the regular season. They had the more playoff points. But again, Grand Rapids is, like I said, they're kind of playing with house money a little bit. They're on a roll right now. Everyone's on a roll right now. We talked about that earlier, but so it feels like 3 true toss-up games. Any of those teams could win, and then North Judson.
Yeah,
literally, and they're in the class of their own.
North Judson's just they're just there.
Will this be the year of the triple option in state championship?
North Judson. I'm not 100% confident if they run triple option or not, but they are a very run-heavy team. So they some variation of triple option. My God, if Bart Curtis and Keith Kinder both get to go to the state finals in the same year, that would be so cool. That's another free storyline, that's just a great story. It's already great to have the 2 Shaws, the father and son already in this spot, but Bart and Keith are, they always hate getting those questions during Warsaw Mishawaka week about their friendship and bond, but it would be too easy to not ignore if they were both in the state finals next week. Obviously, they got to get there first. They got to get there first. It's a big if. They're playing quality teams, so.
2024, and it's still all about running the football. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah,
that's what I like to hear.
And good defense.
That's how good defense and running the football.
That's
how
it all culminates with Army Notre Dame
Saturday night at Stadium
on WNDU Channel 16.
Yes, that's where you can watch it. I'll be live out there. Also, 16 News Now game day in the morning. It's
on the national network.
Concrete jungle where dreams are made of.
Yes,
playoff dreams.
Playoff dreams. Yeah, that's looking like that right now.
Loser leaves town for the college football playoff, probably.
It really is. So, But no, so we got a ton of stuff. We'll be back next week. At least Austin and I will be. Sabrina will be out of town. But we'll be back next week to break down. Yeah, we'll be back next week to break down
could be
our
the
team.
end of football season. Could have teams. Could have 4.
We could have 4. We could have none, or 1.
Or 1.
Yeah,
or 2.
or 2 or 3. We could. But if we have teams.
Am I hearing 5?
I don't know how that would work. Some IHSAA rule, like, Knox actually didn't lose.
Class shatter. Oh my God, here comes Concord.
They're not done yet.
They're not dead. By God, that's Concord music.
Yeah, so we'll have that to talk about next week, and of course you can catch Austin's working the South Entry. He's gonna have some great stuff. Sabrina's working on a great story, I know, as well for this week for WNDU, and then on Friday night, 16 Sports Extra. We'll have the highlights from some of these games and just kind of breaking it all down. So,
yeah.
Thanks for watching another edition of 16 Sports Extra, the podcast.